Today on Catherine Learns Stuff, I'm going to walk you through assembling the Mother's Day shaker card that we designed in my last video. So let's jump in. So now that we've finished designing the card, it's time to cut out the card with our Cricut. What I like to do when I'm making cards that have sort of flowers on them and other random designs, I like to pull out my spare pieces of cardstock that I've used in other projects, and I've got sort of mounds and mounds of it, and just pick out random pieces for the flower petals because I find that it makes the flowers look nicer. And then sort of some of the major parts of the card, I'm just going to use sort of a standard plain cardstock, and then for the shaker portion, I like to use these clear sheet protectors instead of acetate sheets because I can get them for cheap at the dollar store, and they do the trick just as well. And I need my fancy glue to glue it all together. And finally, for some of the shaker portions, I need this foam tape, which is double-sided, so we'll have that as well. I've listed a link to all the products that I've used below in the description, so you can have access to that there as well. So once I pull all this through the Cricut and get it all cut up, we'll pick it up again from there and start assembling our project. The one piece that I'm not going to cut out, just until all of my design pieces are cut up and assembled, is the actual card backing itself. I'm just not sure how to color code that right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to use a blank cardstock that's just one color or use a designed cardstock. I think once the design of all the flowers and the shaker is complete, I'll be able to have a better idea of what to work with. So I'm not cutting that out until after I've got my main pieces all assembled. Okay, so I've got all my pieces cut out. I've got my 3 smaller flowers here cut out in random odds and ends of colored cardstock that I have from before. I've got my big one main flower. I just decided to pull that all in one color. I've got my words here that says Happy Mother's Day with my outlines. I've left the letters actually attached to the cutting mat for now because I'm terrible with letters, and this way I don't lose them and they stay nicely organized. I've got my 4 stems, I've got my vase, I've got my clear acetate piece, I've got the little centers that go in my flowers. So now I'm ready to start assembling this. I'm going to start off with the big flower because it's all the same color, and then I'm going to move on to the colorful flowers and work my way through there. So if you remember from when we were designing this larger flower, there's 2 pieces for each layer. So there's the 2 large ones, the 2 middle ones, and the 2 small ones. The one thing that I'm going to do before I start gluing anything is I'm quickly going to just sort of round up the petals. It doesn't take a lot of work, but it makes the flower pop a little bit better. And I find that doing this beforehand makes the flower look nicer than doing it afterwards when the flower is all glued together. So I'm quickly just going to do this for all the pieces. So all of our flowers have a little bit of a curl to them now. So what I'm going to do is I'm quickly going to just glue them all together. I don't like to glue them together sort of as groups. I just kind of do one at a time over another so that I can maybe just add a little bit more of a uneven pattern because I don't want them to be totally centered on each other. And then I get to add my little center onto this. And let this dry. You'll see that it's got a little bit of depth to it when it's on the side, and that's the flower there. Whoops. And that's the flower there. So now we're going to move on to the other flowers. So these are the petals for all the other flowers. Now all of the shapes that I made initially were different sizes, so I'm quickly going to just organize them into sort of largest to smallest. Okay, so I have all of my flowers sort of arranged, and before I do anything else, I'm just going to kind of put them on top of each other to make sure that the colors work with each other. But I think overall, any sort of combination of large, medium, small is going to work. So I think that's okay to give it a little bit of depth. So again, what I'm going to do with these is I have to make sure that I roll all of these stems, all these petals, a little bit just to give the flower more depth. I'll show you afterwards the difference between what one looks like that's been rolled before and afterwards. So I'm quickly going to roll all these petals, and then we'll carry on. Okay, so now I'm just going to quickly glue these together. Again, a quick little dab. And I want to offset them a little bit. They don't need to be perfectly centered between the next petals because that'll allow us to see all of the petals if we have them just a little bit offset. So there's the 3 flowers. So you'll see they're kind of nicely rolled, and even when you see them on the screen here, they've got some nice depth. I did these ones the other day. They also look nice, but they're kind of less, I don't know, I think they look less vibrant when I roll them up after the fact. So I think I like them better when they're rolled up during, but you can always just fold them like this after the fact if you forgot, which is fine too. Now we're going to work on the vase. So what I've got is just an outline here that's going to go on top of my plastic sheet. If you recall, we made that during the design. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this onto the plastic sheet first, and then I'm going to let it dry. And while that's drying, I'm going to work on the base of the back of the vase. Now, one thing that I find is when you're using the plastic, you really need to make sure that it dries well before you do anything else with it, because it will pull up. I like to dry the plastic sheet with the paper under a book so that it keeps it firm while we are doing other things. Now just quickly applying this here. The nice thing about this glue is that it dries clear, so when some of it smudges out, it will not look terrible. Although that's going to look terrible. Okay, so I'm just going to put that under a book to hold it shut, hold it firm while it dries. Now, with this piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try not to get it stuck to the table. But I'm going to try to apply an edge around this whole vase with my double-sided foam tape. So the one thing that I always do is I end up making curved edges, which is not the greatest for applying this stuff, but that'll get sorted out as we go. So just applying this one piece at a time. We want to make sure that there are no gaps because this is what's going to hold in all of my glitter. I need glitter for this, by the way, if I forgot to mention that. So this is where all of our shaker bits are going to go. So I've got this pack of fancy glitters and confettis and things. And so I'm going to try to match this up to my kind of purple flowers because that's kind of the motif that I'm going with. So I'm going to pull in some purple and I'm going to just sprinkle it kind of here into the middle. That one was a little bit wilder than I planned. I'm gonna add a little bit of green for the stems. Now I've already made a mess here, so I can only see this getting better as we go. So this is the tricky part, and I find that this part gets me every time. We need to take off the second layer of protector on this double-sided tape all the way around without making a big mess here with all of our glitter and sprinkles. So wish me luck. I am terrible at this, so it will probably be a mess. This often works well with tweezers and a pick. So wish me luck. Okay, so I've got a little gap right here and a little gap right here that I need to fix, so bear with me for a second. So, we're ready. So this is dry now, and this is ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully center this here and put this on like so. This is our base. That's good. Okay, next we have to do the letters, my least favorite part. So if you remember in the design, the way this is going to go is kind of going to sit like this on the card. So I don't want to add more depth to these letters, so I'm not going to use the double-sided foam tape. I'm just going to simply glue them onto each layer onto itself. Kind of lining this up here. That's backwards. That's better. So we're going to do each sort of piece by itself and then add the top layer. Now I'm quickly just going to put this under a book for a moment so that everything glues down well. And now we've got my fancy letters that I get to struggle through. Okay, so we're going to do one letter at a time. I'm going to pull this off gently, hopefully not rip anything, and get this all glued together. Whew, that was harder than I wanted. Okay, letters are done. So I'm just gonna put this under a book again to let it dry flat. Okay, so what I've done is, since I'm making more than one of these cards, I've actually pulled out some vinyl and got Happy Mother's Day out on vinyl so that I can show you how quickly you can actually do letters in vinyl instead of doing them in paper, or in cardstock, so that it actually can save you some time and look nice, assuming that you don't mess anything up. So quickly just weeding it. Okay, so we've got our Happy Mother's Day down. Quickly just using some transfer tape on top of it. And burnish it down on the one side, and then I gotta do it on the back side as well. Okay, and so quickly I'm just going to pull off the backing paper Okay, I've taped down my backing here so that it doesn't pop up on me when I'm trying to put this down. Get my flowers out of the way here, and I'm going to just line this up. Hopefully not mess it up this time. And put it down. And push it down. And just like that. I've got my letters done. So I prefer to do it that way. It's much faster and a lot less stressful. But if you like the paper look, you can also use paper. So there we've got the two Happy Mother's Day, one with vinyl and one with just cardstock. Okay, so this is what the card front will look like. Now I just need to figure out what kind of paper I want to use behind this. So I'm going to pull out some of my different colors and see what combinations I can come up with. So I've got this as one of the options. Doesn't look too bad. Another option. So I think I'm going to go with the gold polka dots for this card and use the green on my other card and go with both then. And I'll use this green. Okay, so the other card, just so that we've got record, I've got a score line here that I pre-cut, so I just need to fold the card and it's ready to be assembled. What I like to do before I assemble the cards is I like to just make sure everything kind of fits perfectly where I want it to, and so that there's enough space. I want to make sure everything kind of falls within the space of the card. So that kind of makes everything fit. So what I'm going to do now is quickly just glue everything down. And I want to make sure I leave a little bit of a gap here so that I've got space for the stems to kind of fit in there and not be needing cutting afterwards. So that's there. When I'm gluing on the Happy Mother's Day, I want to glue just at the bottom here, not on the back side of the Mother's Day sign. Kind of like so. And then I've got my stems. So I want to be able to kind of put them in like this. Just glue them in nicely. And then put the flowers down right afterwards. And these don't have to be perfectly placed because they kind of fall behind the flowers anyways, so they're just there to get a little bit of extra color into the card. And there we have it. The cards are done. And that's it. Our Mother's Day Shaker card is done. I've left a link to all the products that I've used below in the details, as well as a link to my website where you can get some additional tips and tricks to making this card. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much.